In the sphere of human psychology and its application through psychotherapy, there is the understanding through three primary centers in the mind body, the organism, the physical organism, the emotional, energetic, mental body form. The three centers are the mental center, the emotional center, and the physical center, or the place of will going in reverse, the place of feeling, the place of rational mind. And we understand, or we tend to orientate ourselves primarily to one of these three centers, and therefore the activity that is associated. You know this, for example, you have friends, you have relatives, you yourself may be aware that primarily you experience the world mentally through thought, rational mind, intellect, analyzing perhaps, and you would be prone to planning, worrying, strategy, all of these kinds of things. If your primary mode of access to experience is emotional, then you will tend to have an imbalance sometimes when you're restless or when you're out of balance in some ways, and anxiety or irritation or sadness or grief will take over the body form, the physical, mental, psychological organism, and you will suffer in those kinds of ways. So some through thought, some through emotion, because of the primary mode of access to experience. And the third is the physical, or the will forces, or that center in the body through which we get things done, rise to the occasion, perhaps are drawn to sports or martial arts, or physical activities. And there we may, on the one hand, have prowess and great abilities to exercise, to realize and express, and on the other hand, of course, if something goes wrong with the physical body, something serious, something difficult, something that demands medical attention, then there is the other side which offsets the positive. Now, all of this is clear to the mind of common sense, and there's more detailed analysis in human psychology and the worlds of psychotherapy to address this. And as psychotherapists, we may tend to witness in the person in front of us which is the primary mode of access, so that we know through their relating experience, their way of speaking, and even their way of behaving, just which one takes precedence. It doesn't mean the others don't figure, of course. We are ultimately mental, emotional, physical beings, and the energies associated with that affect, express, and inform the entire organism. So the person before you, who's ultimately a mystery, will give you clues as to at least how they experience the world, and therefore imply some tendencies in the consequences of how they experience through these three primary centers: mental, emotional, and physical. What's less spoken about is the spiritual personality. Your spiritual personality again relates to mental, emotional, physical centers and their associated activities, behaviors, and ways in which you experience the world, and through the world, the spiritual realms. And you will find yourself drawn to religious, spiritual activities that reflect this. So if, going now in reverse order, you find yourself attracted in particular to certain kinds of yoga, certain kinds of movements that have a spiritual element to them, certain kinds of diet, and if these are interests of yours and things that you naturally are drawn to, adhere to, employ in your spiritual practice and or discipline, then you are primarily in spiritual personality aligned to a physical way. Now, a physical way will open the doors in time to the emotions and the intellect. And similarly, if you find yourself drawn to devotional ways of heart opening, ways of emotional catharsis and expression and spontaneity, here then is your spiritual personality embodied in your emotional self. The third, of course, is known as the way of knowledge, or perhaps wisdom, which is the way of the mind, the way of thought and questioning, not merely of amassing knowledge, but using the mind to exhaust itself in the questions about reality. And this too is a viable expression of the spiritual personality in regard to a way to spiritual liberation.